I wanted to talk about something that I've been waiting to see for a really long time. No, not the confirmation from James Harden that the relationship with the 76ers is too late to repair. James Harden did with Jason Bristol of KHOU and said, I think so. I think that the relationship with the Sixers is too late to repair. Classic him. I loved reading this from Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale is one of the best players in NBA history. He was an awesome player and a big part of those 1980s Celtics teams. And while he wasn't Larry Bird, the guy was a very good player. And I think anybody who watched the Rockets in the 1980s and the couple of matchups that they had with the Boston Celtics, you would remember how good McHale was. Well, McHale was the head coach of the Houston Rockets for a couple of seasons, and he was the first coach with James Harden. And he did an interview with Heavy.com. And man, the guy was really frank about his time with Harden. And it just makes me happy. In the 2015 playoffs, when McHale benched Harden in the fourth quarter, Harden played well in Game 7, but the Rockets lost the conference finals in 5 to Golden State. McHale said about Harden coming into camp in 16, the next year he came to camp, he was fat and didn't feel like playing. And I got fired 11 games into the season. He had a plan. Damn! I have a question. Why won't more people in NBA circles just be frank about James Harden? It always feels like people are tiptoeing around it. And, okay, maybe in the case of Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook, they're friends going back to their time with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I've never understood why people won't publicly hate on James Harden in the league. Like, it's always subtle. It's passive aggressive. Like, the furthest that we've come, closest that we've come to somebody like really roasting James Harden was Giannis Antetokounmpo. And McHale even clarified in this interview, overall with James, it wasn't that bad. The year he came in to camp heavy and didn't feel like playing, that was hard. I remember looking at him and saying, it's just going to take to December before he's in shape. But whatever situation you're in, you just have to find a way to work through if you want to be successful. It's the same with James and Daryl here. We'll see. But he called him a fatty boom batty. And that excites me. I want more people to come out and say the truth. Because that's what Harden is. And that's what he's probably going to do again this year. And again, if he's doing things in the community, neato, splendid. But you know what I do for a living? I don't talk about effing charity because I don't care. I talk about what the guys do on the court or what they're not doing to be ready to play on the court. Speaking of on the court this year, Kelly Iko, The Athletic, was on a podcast, The Athletic NBA show. And I know that there are lots of rumors about the Rockets bringing in James Harden this offseason. I got to say, I got a bit of a pants tent hearing this rumor about the Rockets in the foreseeable future.
To add to that Joel thing, I've heard, obviously the New York angle is there as well, but another 100%. Another team is Houston as well. Like, just because of the bond between, Joel and Ime, and just that situation where they've added older.
This is where super producer Andrew Schleck should splice in some is an oldie but goodie. Alanis Morissette, isn't that ironic? We need some ironic music right now.
So I think, maybe in the next year or so, I think, because obviously if Joel stays this season and plays it out, that's one thing. But moving forward from that, I do think New York and Houston are the two teams to watch if it ever came to a situation where Joel said, I want to leave too.
Joel Embiid to the Rockets, a possibility per Kelly Iko. And I did not know much about a relationship that Joel Embiid would have with Ime Udoka, but that's pretty interesting. And obviously the Rockets historically have had a pretty incredible history when it comes to big men. We're not just talking about Hakeem. We're not just talking about the Dream. We're talking about Moses Malone. We're talking about
Ralph Sampson.
Ralph Sampson. Thank you.
Yao Ming.
This is
Dwight Howard.
That's true. They did
Clint
have
Capella. Alperen
Stop.
Sengun.
Stop. Okay,
What?
we're done. But they've had a pretty incredible history when it comes to big men. I don't know if that necessarily means something to Joel Embiid, but I imagine that the idea of being at an organization that Hakeem Olajuwon is still involved with would definitely be appealing to him. In addition to that, I'd love to see Embiid here. I really would. I think it would make things a lot more fun. Embiid, maybe a little bit less than he used to, but speaks his mind. I feel like over the course of the last year, obviously the playoffs, you're not thrilled, and the shape's always going to be a bit of an issue. But he is one of those players where if you actually surround him with a supporting cast that can help him out, which he did not have this past season in Philly, I think to a true extent. Like, yeah, they had Tyrese Maxey and they had some other players, but I'm intrigued by that. You have a lot of these young players. Do you really need all of them? That's the other thing we're going to find out this year, like who's staying and who's going. Well, somebody is gone. I would say that, like, it's not just Kevin Porter Jr. we're talking about here as like the odd man out. Like, I think Jalen Green is potentially an odd man out here too.
One of the lottery picks is like there's just so many lottery picks on this team that it's tough to see them all, either make it like, and you want to keep them, or make them to where you package them in a trade for a star. And I just can't wait for, if this does happen, the fact that Embiid is like kind of just big man Harden, and two,
oh damn,
he kind of like he goes to the free throw line a lot, kind of comes up small in the playoffs. It's kind of just big man Harden, but also the very newsy or headline or the coming up next, the greatest assist James Harden ever gave the city of Houston.
Shut up, Greenberg. Just shut.
Joel Embiid.
I love that you brought it full circle. A couple of texts, one from the 832. Lizzo would call Harden a fat ass. Well, Lizzo would call a lot of people a fat ass, we learned, which is very ironic. The piggyback off of that. A couple of other texts. This is from the same guy. Harden will have your ass kicked like he did that basketball player's son. Yeah, Moses Malone's son. Moses Malone Jr.
Didn't he also,
Another texter said McHale's about to get Moses Malone Jr. Harden is a fatty boom batty. Like, what? He's going to deny that?
Does Kevin McHale have any sons that live in Houston?
That's a good point. That's a good point. On one more texter from the 281. Does Paul have a history with big men? We've always come full circle here.